Hello and welcome back to another episode of Hawaiian Shirt Projects. In today's episode, we will be finishing the pocket knife build that we've been working on. I will be going over a little bit more on sharpening the blade, as well as fitting and polishing the knife scales, and the final fit and finish of the knife itself. So if you want to see how I did that, make sure to stick around. So to kick things off today, I am going to start by sharpening the blade. I took it out of the handle from what I previously pieced together for the fit and finish to make it a little bit easier on this process, as well as I had a little bit more cleanup to do before I actually attach the scales and everything else. But to start things off, I am using a sharpening stone kit that I picked up off of Amazon.com, and I will make sure to leave a link to that in the description below. It came with 2 different bricks. Each brick has 2 different sides on it with grit amounts starting at 400, and I believe goes all the way up to 8,000. It also came with a smoothing stone. I believe that is to help fix any imperfections that you may cause over the lifespan of the whetstones. And it's a pretty decent kit. I really enjoy it. It does the job. Say, on this project, I'm only going to go to 1,000 grit on the sharpening stones. I don't see any point in going any higher. It's just your pocket knife. It'll cut at 1,000 grit. It sure as heck will, because I cut my finger several times while sharpening it. So what I did here is I just used a Sharpie to kind of color in my bevel of what I want my edge to be. That way I kind of have a guide and can make sure that I'm getting the correct angle while I'm using the sharpening stone, because to be honest, I am absolutely terrible at sharpening knives on a sharpening stone. So this is just a little guide to help me out. Then what we're going to do is we are going to move on to making the scales. So what I have here are some resin scales that I picked up from Amazon as well. I will leave a link to them in the description below. You might have better luck than I did. Unfortunately, these scales that I got from the company that I got has lots of air pockets. You can see those little white dimples throughout. Those are air pockets, and it took a lot of work to try and get around that, and even in the finished product, it still shows up. So that was disappointing. But all in all, they're decent. They work. Then they're quite beautiful aside from those air pockets. What I did from there is I took and made a couple of cutouts of drawn outlines of my actual knife handles, and I glued them onto the scales using just basic Elmer's glue stick glue. And you don't have to do this part of it, but I used a lathe or a bandsaw to cut everything out a little bit rough, left everything oversized a little bit. You just go straight into sanding if you want, if you don't have the saw. This just saved me a little bit of time, is the only reason why I did it. Now, make sure when you're doing things like this with saws and everything, wear your safety glasses. I didn't think it was that big of a deal when I first started, but then I started getting flakes all over me and stuff like that, and I put on my safety glasses. Should have thought of it beforehand, but I'm a little bit slow sometimes. And after doing all the sanding, I realized that I probably should have been wearing a respirator. I did end up eventually doing that while doing the cleanup side of the sanding. I don't know if resin's good or bad for you, but just in case, wear a respirator. Now here we go on to the sanding. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to sand down to the paper that I cut out and stuck on there. Cleaning everything up, I still want to leave it a little bit oversized, but I also want to round off some of the edges because those edges could be uncomfortable when I actually finish making the handle, and this just kind of preps for that. Curved off some of the sharp corners I had cut into there, and just keep working it, smoothing it out on the sander, kind of getting a lot closer to where I actually want it to be, especially on that top section where we're going to have the rivet sticking through that actually holds the blade into place. I need to make sure that I leave room for that rivet. Once I do that, I'll again put some more Elmer's glue on there, and I'll just gently stick the metal pieces of the handle to it. And I'm just going to go ahead and drill out my holes for my rivets that are going in. Unfortunately, right here, as you can see, I did crack the handle on my first attempt at drilling these. Now, from what I could tell, there was an air pocket close by that was right in line with that crack that could have caused it to be weak. It could have been that I was pushing too hard, or I didn't have enough support underneath in that hole to support it while I was drilling. No big deal, I just have to make a new set scale for that side. Didn't take me very long, knocked it out real quick, and then went ahead and drilled the holes. Did that for both sides of the blade, and then now we are finally on to gluing the scales on. What I'm using is clear epoxy, Gorilla Glue, and I've never used it before for an application like this. I've used it for simple fixes like on my coffee mugs and stuff like that if I break the handle or something, and it works fantastic for that, so I figured we'll give this a shot. It does say that it works on metal, so figured why not give it a chance. Went ahead and squirted it in a little plastic container that it came in, mixed it up real good, and then I applied it to the metal of the handle, and then put my knife scale on top of that, clamped it down nice and tight. Make sure you don't go too tight, again, possibly cracking things. Just nice and snug, let it dry. I let it dry for about 4 hours before I went on to doing the other side, and then after I did that, I let the entire thing set for 24 hours to make sure I had a good cure on it. I forgot to mention earlier, before I put the epoxy on there, I went ahead and kind of gently sanded to scuff up the metal surface. That'll help it bond a lot easier, hopefully make it last a lot longer. Now my rivets were a little bit bent from when I set them in, so I did have to use needle nose pliers to kind of line up the hole and get everything to go in there nicely. It worked out fairly well up until the point to where I squeezed a little bit too hard. This is why I warned you not to put too much pressure on them when you're squeezing it, because I ended up goofing and cracked it again. This time it was right next to the drill hole that I put for the rivet, and unfortunately I'm going to have to make another scale. So I'll get that knocked out and then we'll come back. Alright, now that we are back, both scales are finished, looking good. I'm going to go ahead and smooth out, kind of sand down everything flush with the metal sections of the handle that I want, that nice beautiful black, brass spine section of the handle. I really want everything to be nice and flush and smooth with air, clean and polished, and so I'm just going to keep working that back and forth gently with the sander, as well as on the end, and I'm going to work in the finger grooves a little bit as well. I did end up doing a little bit of hand filing that I didn't get video of at the time, but not a whole heck of a lot. It was just kind of just to knock off some of the corners in certain sections. For the most part, this belt sander did perfectly for this situation, up until it came to the point of polishing, which you'll see me doing hand sanding with. And in order to do this, at this point, trying to roughing out the shape, kind of getting everything smoothed out and cleaned up a little bit, I am using I believe it's 240 grit sandpaper, nothing too smooth. And in order to actually do the polishing, I went all the way up to 1500 grit sandpaper, where I was hand sanding, and I even ended up wet sanding it to give it a little bit more of a polished shine to it. If you want and you have the availability of these tools, if you have a buffing wheels, buffing compound, that will take it a next step further in its cleanliness and getting rid of some of the unseemly scratch marks that you see in sanding. Thankfully, the wet sanding didn't leave too bad and actually came out quite nicely polished. So I'm very happy about that. But at this point in the video, I want to say thank you guys for sticking around. If you are new to the channel and you are enjoying this video, make sure to check out the rest of my videos on this pocket knife. I will leave them linked up top here, as well as down in the description if I can figure out how to do it that way. And if you're enjoying this video particularly, hit that like button. If you're not, hit the thumbs down button. If you want to leave a comment, have any questions, concerns, any recommendations for something, go and leave those down in the comment section. I'd really appreciate it. And if you're enjoying the channel as a whole, go ahead and subscribe. If you're really liking it, I want to say go ahead and recommend it to your friends. Share this video all you want. I want to get as many people into blacksmithing, bladesmithing, doing home projects, just as many people as possible to get out there and learn something and do it themselves. One, it becomes a valuable asset in your life, and plus you get the pride of having done something yourself. So I want to share my experiences, show my mess ups, and help people learn from my mistakes and my experience to be able to do these type of projects themselves. So go ahead and share this video, and I want to say thank you. We have finally hit 50 subscribers. I love you guys, you're fantastic. I really appreciate the support that you guys are showing me, and it really gives me the drive to continue on with this YouTube channel. It's been a little bit of a pain, but I hope I'm doing a good job for you guys. So I want to say thank you very much for your support. You're fantastic. I really appreciate it. But that is the end of this project. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. I know I had a lot of fun with it. As always, stay classy, party on.